What is Virgo versus the Zodiac, and why should you play it? Virgo vs. The Zodiac is a game made by Moon Nana and was released to Steam on December 12, 2019. The game is an RPG that is set in a world that is both sci-fi and fantasy. In this game, you play as the Zodiac Virgo as she sets out on the quest to reinstate the Golden Age by dethroning the other Zodiacs. This game features turn-based combat which centers around timing your actions. With this in mind, why should you play it? Well, let me explain. As previously stated, Virgo vs. The Zodiac is an RPG, so its main focus is on combat and story, and Virgo vs. The Zodiac has a lot of it. I'll explain the combat in a future section. For now, I'll give a general overview of the game. Virgo vs. The Zodiac puts you into the shoes of Virgo, one of the 12 Zodiacs, the rulers of the galaxy. She travels through the cosmos, throning the other Zodiacs in order to bring back the Golden Age, a supposed time of peace, unity, and balance. Virgo herself is the heiress to the Golden Age, and she isn't afraid to mention it. As she travels across the galaxy, she meets a colorful cast of characters, be they possible friend or foe. The endings alongside the bonds you forge are dependent on the choices you make through the game. The game's story takes many twists and turns, which I'll cover in a different section where I'll go into full explanation mode and will spoil the entire story. The game is littered with a lot of charm, from the entire look of the game to the numerous silly dialogues that you'll encounter along the way. The game is oozing with personality, from beginning to end. This even continues into certain aspects of the game, as it allows you to jump during cutscenes, and the main rideable creature you have at your disposal is the mystical alpaca. One recurring part of the game is the bullet hell sections. These are 5 times throughout the game and pits you into a minigame where you have to fight space reptiles. These reptiles have put high tolls throughout the cosmos, and fighting them is the only way to avoid it. These sections, however, are optional, and you can beat the game without having to do any of them. However, you gain nice rewards for completing them. There are 3 main weapons that you can switch between, which I don't know if they have actual names, so I'll just make them up. The first weapon is the 4 arrows. This weapon has the highest range, but deals the least damage. This weapon is green. The second is the 3 blades, and this weapon has less range than the 4 arrows, however it does more damage. This weapon is purple. Lastly is the hammer, which does the most damage but has the least range. This weapon is red. There are 2 other attacks that can be used during these sections, the Purity Cleanse and the Purity Beam. These 2 attacks require purity, which can be restored through items found in boxes, which will be explained a little bit later. Purity Cleanse has Virgo charge forward into the enemies and return back at the bottom of the screen. This attack can destroy projectiles, while also giving Virgo invincibility while the attack is active. Purity Beam shoots a large beam forward, dealing massive amounts of damage as long as the beam is up. As you go through each section, there are boxes that appear and can drop multiple items, which are mostly helpful. First is the heart, which heals your health by 10. Then there's the shield, which increases your purity by 5. The next items are the sword and the accelerator, which raise your damage and your speed respectively. Following those 2 is the orb, which increases your combo. Combo is a score multiplier, which maxes out at times 12. If you take damage, your combo decreases by 5 levels. The last item to come out of boxes is the warning sign. If you touch one, you take damage. Each bullet hell section consists of 3 stages, the regular stages and a boss stage at the end. In these boss stages, items will drop from above to help aid the player. These most usually are shields or orbs, but hearts, accelerators, and swords can also drop. Each boss has 2 phases. The first phase is where the boss is stagnant and doesn't move about, while the second phase has the boss become mobile and move across the screen horizontally. Other than that, there are other nice features which allow the game to have more charm while also adding more to the world. There's a Hall of Memories in the main hub, which allows you to experience events before the story took place, and learn more about the other Zodiacs and their relationships. There's a crafting system, however, that'll be explained more in depth when we get to the combat section, as I feel it's more important to talk about that there. There's a place you can go to known as the Black Hole Dungeon, which allows you to go to areas that remix locations that you had previously gone to. In these areas, you can fight a bunch of enemies and then a boss in order to grind for levels, which isn't much necessary, but you can gain special rewards from doing them. There's a large number of customization options for your main party, allowing them to don outfits with different color palettes. These color palettes are also reflected in the cutscenes whenever they appear. You can also do this with the rideable alpaca and a pig companion you can meet along the way. There's a good chunk of optional side quests that you can do as well. A couple of them are mandatory if you want all achievements, but most of them are optional. You do get decent rewards from doing the side quests though, alongside more of the charm the game has to offer. One major thing to note as well is that there are no random encounters in the game. Though some battles are unavoidable, most you can skip. This is a major convenience for me, as I'm someone who has played many an RPG, and random encounters can be the bane of my existence. Especially with how grinding isn't entirely necessary to beat the game, this is a major plus. There's a lot of characters in Virgo vs. The Zodiac. I mean, with the title of the game, you can already guess there's already 12 characters. I do have a section talking more in depth about the characters. However, I wanted to take the time to mention how unique each character is, providing a truly memorable cast of characters, and none of them I really dislike. Now, with the general overview finished, let's move on to one of the largest aspects of Virgo vs. The Zodiac. The combat of Virgo vs. The Zodiac is based around timing your actions and defending from enemy attacks. Each attack that you can do, or that the enemy can do, can be affected by a timed event. There are 5 main timed events, and like the weapons of the bullet hell section, I'll give these names as well. There aren't really any names for them. The first event is the circle hit. A circle will appear above the character doing the action, and to get the best result, you have to wait for the circle to reach the blue section before hitting a specific button. The second is the rectangle hit, where you have to wait for a red bar to be over the white section before hitting a specific button in order for the best result. Next is the masher. This timed event involves you having to hit a specific button over and over to keep a bar filled. Following that is the directional combo, where you have to hit directional buttons in random combinations for the best result. Sometimes you only need 2 hits, while sometimes it needs 4 or 5. The last timed event is the aimer, where you have to hit a specific button while your pointer is in the middle of a vertical bar for the best result. I should mention, as I've beaten this game 6 times, I have only encountered one weapon that ever uses the aimer. If you don't get the best result on these timed events, you will still do damage to the enemy you're attacking, or resist some of the damage that you would take from enemy attacks. However, you wouldn't deal or defend as much. As well, special effects from attacks only activate if you do the timed events perfectly. And in the case for enemy special effects, you would only avoid it if you defend from their timed events perfectly. Now, you may be wondering why I said for most of the timed events why you have to press a specific button. Well, it's because your party members have a button tied to them. Virgo is tied to the A button, and the companions you'll get are tied to the B button and the X button. If you're watching my gameplay in the back, you may see that the buttons that are showing for character actions aren't the ones that I set. I can assure you, those are the buttons I'm pressing, the ones that I set. But there's a possible error with the controller I was using, which made it show the incorrect buttons. You don't have to abide by this though, as it is possible to switch to only one button being required for all 3 characters. I just chose not to use it. The combat, I believe, has a balance between offense and defense, which sounds really basic on paper, as most games with combat tend to have this balance. However, I have an explanation. One option you can do on your turns is use your sheath. This action has no timed events tied to it and grants you a boost of purity. Purity acts as armor, allowing you to mitigate damage by using a purity instead. And if you have enough purity to expend, you may take no damage at all. The main boon of having purity, you may ask? Countering. If an enemy attacks you while you have purity, you are able to use a counter afterwards. Counters act as a secondary turn, and they have their own weapons and stats tied to them. It should be noted though, if you attack an enemy that has purity, it can counter you. Purity depletes every turn a character takes. Usually, you lose around 33% of it on each turn, and this is true of most enemies and bosses as well. Shields are not the only way of getting purity. Some weapons allow you to gain purity, and some counters do as well. I think it's best next to explain weapons. At maximum, a single character can wield 8 weapons, 4 purges, and 4 counters. Counters were explained previously. However, purges are your primary action. There are 8 types of weapons, however they can be split into 4 categories based on what they do. First are the melee weapons and the gloves, which are purge weapons and counter weapons respectively. And for future note, this order will be how the other categories are ordered as well. These weapons attack the enemy at the front of the group. Next is the ranged weapons and accessories, which can hit a single enemy regardless of their position. Following that is aerial weapons and boots, which hit all enemies. Lastly is shields and armors, which increase your purity. Purge weapons and counter weapons do a lot more bonuses than just that. Some deal unique effects, such as regaining health based on damage you deal. Others do extra damage that go past enemies' purity, while my favorite has always been the ones that ensure critical hits. Some weapons you have to wait before you can use them again, and an amount of time required to recharge a weapon before using them again. Most weapons can be used on turn 1, however some may take up to 3 turns before you can first use it. The time it takes to recharge a weapon, though, is different, and some can require no recharge, while some may require 3 turns of recharge as well. Another thing that weapons can do is affect the stats of your character. In the game, there are a total of 18 stats, but overall, it's not terribly hard to understand them. I'll explain them right now. Starting off with your offensive stats, you have Purge Attack, Counter Attack, and Critical Attack. The Purge Attack and the Counter Attack stats are based around the base damage you can do each of your turns. Critical Attack, however, is an additional bonus damage for when you deal a critical hit, on top of the 2 times multiplier you already get. Following that is Influence, Critical Rate, and Speed. Critical Rate and Speed are what their names suggest. It's the odds you have of dealing a critical hit and how fast your character is. Influence, however, influences the damage done by special effects of your weapon, such as how much poison damage an enemy will take. The next set of stats are the defenses. This includes Cardinal Defense, Mutable Defense, and Fixed Defense. Cardinal, Mutable, and Fixed are the 3 damage types, and these stats help defend against them. Hearts per turn and Purity per turn are the last of the defense stats. They show how much health and purity you regenerate on each of your turns. The last set of stats are your attributes. The easiest to understand are Hearts and Purity. Hearts is your health, while Purity acts as your shield. Destiny is another stat that you have. For each point of Destiny, your critical attack and influence stats increase by 1%. Cuteness is a stat, however, it does absolutely nothing to all my knowledge. There's another aspect of the game's charm, and I genuinely think it's funny. The last 3 stats are Ambition, Versatility, and Patience. Ambition is tied to cardinal damage, and increases cardinal damage the more ambition you have, alongside also increasing purity by 1% for every point of ambition. Versatility and Patience work almost similarly, for mutable and fixed respectively. However, versatility increases hearts and purity by 0.5% for every point, and patience increases hearts by 1% for every point. Now that we've explained all of the stats, let's get into the damage types, which as previously mentioned are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Each weapon has a damage type, and you can tell by the color that the icon for the weapon has. Cardinal is purple, fixed is red, and mutable is green. You can tell what type an enemy has by the color of their outfits or weapons. The game's damage typing follows a simple rock, paper, scissors type structure. Cardinal beats mutable, mutable beats fixed, and fixed beats cardinal. The last aspect of combat I want to cover also covers the crafting system. The crafting system of the game can be divided into 3 sections: bake, boost, or break. The bake option is where you create weapons or counters. You can also create items that are needed to upgrade weapons. Next is boost. This is where you upgrade weapons, which need stars. the currency of the game, alongside discs of specific tiers and colored shards based on the color of the weapon, i.e. amethyst shards for cardinal/purple weapons. The final option in the crafting system is Break, where you can destroy weapons you find in order to get stars and certain crafting materials. The crafting system isn't necessary to beat the game, but it is a major help in making life a whole lot easier. And now we finished talking about combat. Let's get into the next section where we talk about there are numerous characters in the game. Though I'd love to cover all of them, I've narrowed it down to 15 that I think are pretty integral to the world of the game. I'll attempt to keep this all spoiler-free to my best ability. To begin, I'll start with the main protagonist herself, Virgo, also known by the aliases Holy Queen and Deadly Queen. I believe the Dreadful Queen is also another one, but I'm not 100% certain. She's obsessed with purity and cleanliness. She rules over the Holy Asylum, a hospital of sorts. She's determined to finish her quest of restoring the Golden Age by any means necessary. This includes killing anyone who tries to stop her. She is often in a serious demeanor and doesn't like when people are goofing around her. She isn't unemotional though, she just has difficulty showing her emotions. Algol is the second playable character you get on the journey, and she also goes by Masked Star. She's a star, a creation by one of the Zodiacs whose names are typically derived from stars from the constellation that Zodiac is. Algol, for example, is a Taurus star. In comparison to Virgo, she isn't serious at all, and is always relaxed, even in the tensest of situations. She does have a thing with killing other stars, though. She does have a reason why, she just doesn't tell anyone. Spica, or Spica, I don't really know how it's pronounced, but for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna go with what I've always been saying, so it'll be Spica. He rounds out the playable cast as your third playable character, and is the token male of the game. He is a Virgo star and is a very loyal servant to her. It could definitely be said that he is too loyal though, as seen throughout the game. He's shown to only really focus on serving Virgo, and he's unaware of a lot of things in the world, especially if they're related to being social. Spica, though, is also a very kind, and would rather fight for honor, and not for the death. Ginger is a companion to the party, though not a playable character, like the others. His name is short for Gingerbread Man, and yes, he's a cookie. He hails from the Sacred Forest, and was rescued by Virgo before he could become a sacrifice. Ginger acts as an emotional companion to Virgo, and he is the shoulder she lets herself cry on. Ginger cares a lot about Virgo as well, and would seemingly do anything for her. Now that the main characters are out of the way, let's move on to the 11 other Zodiacs. Not all Zodiacs get the same amount of screen time. However, some get more or less depending on the route you take. For simplicity's sake, we'll go in order from Aries to Pisces. Of course, skipping Virgo, as we've already talked about her. Aries, also known as the Red Hot Chili, which, yes, that is what they are also called. They are the ruler of the Vampire Hotel alongside the Krios volcano. The latter is where they get most of their power from, while the former is a location where most of the dead end up. Aries is considered the strongest zodiac, mostly because they gain their power from the Krios volcano, a location that predates even the zodiacs. They do have the bronze. They are not shown to have the brains, though, as it's explained that they haven't even passed zodiac school, though what that is isn't fully explained. Aries is the sibling of Scorpio. Taurus, also known as the Sleepwalker, is the ruler of the Sacred Forest, where a lot of art and rituals reside. Many denizens of the forest revere her as a god, and do sacrifices every so often in her name. Taurus is oftentimes asleep, spending most days within dreams. Taurus is shown to be rather stubborn, and if anyone doesn't take her seriously, or if they look down on her, she tends to get riled up even more. Taurus is the sister of Libra, and is married to Scorpio. Gemini, also known as the Doppelganger, is the ruler of the Dioscuri Library, a location that is never visited in the game. Gemini is also an indexer, someone who records all knowledge of the universe, be it past, present, or future. Though being Virgo's sister, Gemini seemed the least out of any zodiac, to my knowledge. Though she seems to be rather relaxed and knowledgeable, she does seem to know more than she lets on to, so keep an eye out for that. Cancer, also known as the Beholder and Mother while in her domain, is the ruler of the astrological prison, a location where all criminals end up. Cancer is a big brother type figure in the astrological prison, always keeping an eye on the people below. She, however, is noted to be very cruel to her subjects, and Virgo notes at one point that all of her subjects are not biological. Leo, also known as the Lioness and the Tsarina, is the ruler of the Golden Horde, a bunch of lions who run a coliseum. She's praised as the strongest gladiator of the Horde, and is treated like royalty because of it. She is very combative and loves a good fight. However, she does have a tendency to have an egotistical personality, but isn't bothered when she's humbled. Libra, also known as the Just, is the ruler of the astrological court, the place where all law is dealt. Like with Gemini's domain, you do not get to see Libra's domain. However, it's easier to assume what occurs in the astrological court. Libra is very diplomatic, as no matter what route you take, Libra is one of two zodiacs you never have to fight. Libra does not make law though. However, Libra only follows what is law. She seems to be the most tactical of the zodiacs as well. Scorpio, also known as the Phoenix, is a unique case, as she doesn't necessarily have a domain. Whether she does have one isn't mentioned at all, so it may be best to assume that she doesn't. Scorpio is rather cold and tends to say everything in a serious way, even if she doesn't intend it to be. As mentioned when talking about Taurus, Scorpio is her wife, and Scorpio can be rather obsessive. Though Taurus is not the only thing Scorpio obsesses over, as Scorpio holds onto vendettas forever. Scorpio as well cannot necessarily die, much like her additional title suggests. Sagittarius, also known as the Philosopher, is the ruler of the Sagittarian, which is also called the Fire Moth train. This train travels across the cosmos freely, not having any set destinations. Much like the train, Sagittarius is a free soul and focuses mainly on wanting to ensure that she keeps that freedom. She doesn't want anyone ruling her. Sagittarius, though, is the most happy-go-lucky of the zodiacs, I'd reckon, continuously making puns to mostly Virgo's dismay. Speaking of Virgo, she and Sagittarius used to be friends, though it's uncertain why they split apart. Sagittarius is also Pisces' sister. Capricorn, also known as the Timekeeper, is the ruler of the temples of Saturn. The area used to be a temple dedicated to Saturn himself, but has changed with Capricorn's rule. The temple now is a capitalistic dystopia where the workers are overworked, underpaid, and are currently rioting for better working conditions. Capricorn herself is a serious and busy woman, focusing more on how much time she has to deal with things rather than the substance of what she should be hearing. She seems to not care about her denizens unless they have a high enough profit potential. Capricorn is the sister of Aquarius. Aquarius, also known as the Untied, is similar to Scorpio in that she doesn't necessarily have a domain. I think it could be argued that her ship is her domain, however, since it isn't directly stated to be, I'm only saying it could be argued thus. Regardless, she can be summarized in two words: pirate communism. She hates rulers, especially if they're capitalistic, as this is what caused the relationship between her and her sister Capricorn to be destroyed. Aquarius, though, is loyal to anyone who is trying to destroy hierarchy. The final zodiac is the Redeemer, Pisces. She rules over the cemetery, the graveyard of the cosmos. She is also considered the Oracle, having knowledge of what will come in the future. She tends to be off in a daze and forgets things that happened even just a week before, but that could be presumed because of her oracle nature. Pisces loves Virgo romantically, Scorpio struggles with knowing whether or not Virgo reciprocates. Pisces is carefree like her sister Sagittarius, but not to the same degree. She loves hosting parties in the lighthouse of the cemetery. And now that we have all of the characters to talk about, we can move on to the actual story and the events that occur within it. There will be massive spoilers for all three paths you can take in Virgo vs. The Zodiac, so go to the timestamp you see on screen now. With that out of the way, let's begin. For this section, I will be covering the overall story of the game, but I won't be going into full complete depth of it. I'll try my best to keep it as brief as possible, as for me this script is getting quite long already, and I know this section will make it much longer. Before we begin, I should make note of how depending on the path you take, events will occur differently. I've made a chart of what choices you can make and what ending you would get because of it. It should already be on screen while I'm saying this. Purple is for the cardinal ending, green is for the mutable ending, and red is for the fixed ending. For the sake of simplicity, when events occur differently in one path, I will order it the same way it's ordered in the chart. Cardinal, mutable, then fixed. To help with ensuring you know what path or paths I'll be talking about, on the top right corner of the screen will be the symbol associated with that ending or endings. Now that the preamble is done, I think it's time to begin with Chapter 1. The story begins with Virgo breaking into the Temple of Saturn as she tries to find Capricorn and claim her crown. Alongside that, she has to find the blueprints to all of the domains of each and every zodiac, which includes her own. As she travels through the temple, she sees ghosts rioting for a better working environment, trying to fight against Capricorn's greed. Before she is able to find the blueprints, though, she finds the Neb, the star created by Capricorn, and the two fight after learning that Gemini told the Neb about Virgo's plans. Now, this is where the first choice to determine your ending comes up. However, it doesn't necessarily fix you into one specific ending. Killing the Neb will ensure you don't get the cardinal ending, but you can still get the fixed or mutable ending through later choices. For simplicity's sake, I'll put both mutable and fixed together in this scenario. Once beating the Neb, you have a choice of either sparing or killing her. Sparing her would cause her to run away, and you see that a masked person chases after her. Killing her, on the other hand, would cause the masked person to hang around you for a bit before a supernova occurs. In the world of the game, a supernova is a condensed area of memories that appear once a star dies, and the only way to escape it is to find a memory of the star. Once you grab one, you're allowed to escape. While you notice the masked person flee after grabbing the core of the star, the Neb's core. Once you escape from the supernova, both paths converge again, and the story continues as normal. At this point, Ginger and Virgo separate to work together in getting the blueprints, and after some messing around, Ginger succeeds in getting Virgo to the location of the blueprints. A little while later, they reunite, and then they're able to head to Capricorn's throne. Once at the throne itself, this is where another split occurs. For the cardinal path, you see the masked star having already killed the Neb, and the same events occur like in the other paths, where you have to go through the supernova. Once out, Capricorn arrives and blames you for the death of the Neb. In the mutable and fixed paths, however, Capricorn is already there, and Virgo admits to killing the Neb while also claiming Capricorn didn't care about the Neb. Regardless of the path, you then fight Capricorn, and after winning, you gain her crown. Virgo then flees back to her ship, where she meets Pisces, who questions if Virgo can even break fate, even though Virgo believes she can. They arrive back to the Akasha, where Virgo then consults her informant Chiron on where to go next. She is told to go to Taurus's realm, the sacred forest, and thus that's where she goes. Once Virgo arrives to the sacred forest, she is told by one of its denizens that Taurus is at the festival being held, so she goes there. After participating in it and saving the cookie who was to be the sacrifice, she learns Taurus wasn't there after all. The same denizen then tells her that the only way to get to where Taurus actually is requires that someone with them be Tauresian. This leads Virgo to search for the golden alpaca, which, while on the way, she encounters the masked star from the Temple of Saturn again, who joins up with her this time, and Virgo learns that the masked star's name is Algol. Once they get the golden alpaca, they are then allowed to traverse further into the forest, where they run into Virgo's star and loyal servant, Spica, who immediately, and regrettably, joins the party. They then travel through the remainder of the forest, placing deserts on sanctuaries in order to allow Virgo to enter Taurus's dream. Once she enters the dream, she comes face to face with Taurus, who doesn't let her speak much before initiating a fight with her. Once you beat her, you are then given the next choice, and the first choice that can lock you into a specific ending. This choice is confusing, as you would imagine that having mercy would get you the cardinal ending. But because Taurus is stubborn and doesn't like being locked down upon, you actually have to choose and put this realm's delusion instead. For both the cardinal and mutable endings, you have to pick this option, where Virgo is able to convince Taurus to actually listen to her. But Taurus doesn't give you her crown yet. Once Virgo succeeds and exits Taurus's ring, she is met with Scorpio, who is reasonably upset, but nothing else happens because of it. For the fixed ending, though, Virgo must have pity on Taurus, which results in a second phase of the fight. Once defeating Taurus this time around, Taurus is actually killed, and Virgo watches as the sacred forest is killed as well. Virgo didn't know at the time, but Taurus's life is actually linked to the sacred forests in this weird symbiotic relationship. Virgo does claim Taurus's crown at this point, though. Nevertheless, in both paths, Virgo, Algol, and Spica all return to the Akasha, where Virgo learns the next location she has to go to is the astrological prison, the home of Cancer. Once Virgo leaves for the astrological prison, you see that another zodiac reached the Akasha, intending on following Virgo there. Though you don't know the identity of this zodiac yet, you'll find out soon enough. Virgo arrives alone, bursting the astrological prison until she winds up in the chocolate factory, where she reunites with Algol and Spica. She scolds them for not checking in on Ginger, who they then learn was kidnapped by Cancer, and press further into the factory to find him. At what is seemingly the end of the road, Altar, Cancer's star, intervenes and knocks out Virgo and her companions with a poison. She traps them in the Bastille, the high security area of the astrological prison, which is where our next little divergence point is found, in the cardinal and mutable paths who are met with Aries, who threatens to beat the ever-living daylights out of Virgo. However, Scorpio intervenes and stops Aries from doing that. Then, Scorpio helps Virgo escape herself. In the fixed ending, you see the same zodiac who was on the Akasha and find out that it's Aquarius. She then helps you escape the cell and gives you her crown as a sign of camaraderie. Regardless, Virgo then escapes the Bastille and soon comes face to face with Cancer herself. Cancer prepares to kill Ginger, however is stopped before that can happen. Altarf attempts to fight Virgo's party and loses. Then Virgo and her group fight Cancer herself. Once you beat Cancer, you are faced with the final choice in the game that can determine your ending. Unless you killed Taurus, killing Cancer would put you into the mutable ending. In the cardinal ending, though, you spare Cancer, and you have to fight Altarf again. In the mutable or fixed endings, you fight Cancer again, and then you have to fight Altarf again. No matter what choice you make, Altarf dies, and you enter another supernova. Once you escape, Virgo and her crew escape back to the Akasha, and unless you are on the fixed path, this is where you would get Aquarius's crown. Once Virgo arrives to the Akasha is another divergence point. If you are on the cardinal or mutable path, you meet Taurus and Scorpio, who give you their crowns. If you're on the fixed path, however, you meet Scorpio, who warns Virgo by an eventual reckoning that she has caused. Virgo is then told by Chiron to quickly get to the Sag train, get to Leo's domain in order to get both of Sagittarius's and Leo's crowns rather quickly, and Virgo obliges. Before leaving to get on the Sag train, Virgo lets Aquarius have Algol and Spica for the time she's gone, since Aquarius both gave Virgo her crown and allowed her to borrow her ship for a little bit. Virgo then goes on the Sag train, where she comes face to face with Sagittarius herself. After a fight between the two, Virgo is then able to convince Sagittarius into giving Virgo her crown, and Sagittarius obliges. Virgo then arrives at Leo's domain, where she has to fight in a coliseum to even face Leo. In the final match, Spica arrives to help Virgo, and then after it, they fight Leo herself. Once they win, they take her crown, and Algol creates a portal back to the Akasha, and both Virgo and Spica go in it. No matter which path you're on, you meet Pisces again, and she tells him about the party she has planned, but in both the cardinal and mutable paths, Pisces gives Virgo her crown. Virgo speaks to Chiron, who informs Virgo of a virus infection in Pisces' domain, and Virgo plans on dealing with them before Pisces' party. Virgo and her group leave to go to the cemetery, Pisces' domain, but are interrupted by Aries, who cause them all to get separated. Virgo travels through the cemetery before finding the Hai, the place with the most amount of viruses. Virgo finds Pisces here and tells Pisces how the viruses tricked her, and the two fight against the viruses to escape into the mushroom grove. After some time, they fall unconscious because of the spores that the mushrooms are creating. We then go to Algol and Spica, who are on the other side of the cemetery. During a rest at a hotel, Algol explains why she kills stars, and she wants to revive the person who killed her mother in order to kill him herself. Though, Spica falls asleep before she even gets to that part. After the night at the hotel, they continue forward and eventually find where Virgo and Pisces fell unconscious. Algol helps create an antidote to wake them up. Virgo then heads to the lighthouse for the actual party. This is a major divergence point, and for the cardinal path, Capricorn interrupts the party and warns that the lighthouse is to be attacked and everyone flees. Capricorn informs Virgo that Pisces has become the new vessel for the viruses, and the two have to fight Pisces in order to help her. After beating Pisces, Capricorn tells Virgo that the only way to save Pisces is by using the tear of a creature from the Golden Age, which the golden alpaca is one of them, but Virgo will have to sacrifice the alpaca into the Krios volcano, which she's heading to anyway. For the mutable and fixed endings though, the parties continue as normal, and is attacked. Pisces dies, though Virgo escapes. Nevertheless, Virgo and crew fly back to the Akasha, and she heads off to the Holy Asylum, her own domain, alone. Virgo enters the Holy Asylum and goes to her room alone, plans on sleeping for the rest of her life. While she sleeps, Algol succeeds in reviving the man that killed her mother and kills him herself. 3 months after she falls asleep, Virgo has a nightmare where she is met by an alternate version of herself, and Virgo has to beat her clone. Ginger wakes her up from the nightmare, and Virgo sets off to finish the quest she had started. In the fixed ending, she's met by Gemini, who gives Virgo her crown. It suggests to Virgo about forging the complete crown and becoming the one ruler of the Golden Age. Regardless of the path, Virgo speaks to Chiron, who tells Virgo she should feign being dead to enter Aries' domain, and Virgo goes along with it. Virgo and crew proceed to go to the Vampire Hotel, part of Aries' domain, which lies on the base of the Krios volcano. They enter and proceed to find Libra's room, who gives Virgo her crown without a fight. Afterwards, once they finish helping Aquarius awaken Cerberus and find a diamond in Aries' domain, Aquarius gives the group a Zodiac crown, though the crown depends on which path you're on. For the cardinal path, you're given Gemini's crown, while for the mutable and fixed paths, you're given Aries' crown. At this point comes the 3 major endings, so we'll go in the same order as before, starting with the cardinal ending. For the cardinal ending, you reach the peak of the Krios volcano, where you come face to face with Aries himself. After a duel with Aries, Virgo is able to convince them to hand their crown over peacefully. The golden alpaca is thrown into the volcano, then along with the 12 zodiac crowns. Virgo is able to revive Pisces, and they both, alongside their companions, and all the other zodiacs meet at the Golden Gates to bring about a new age. Not the Golden Age that Virgo was originally planning, but an age where none rule and all are equal. For the mutable ending, before reaching the peak of the volcano, you are met with Mercury, one of the rulers and father of both Virgo and Gemini. Mercury informs Virgo of how Gemini had been keeping the universe in a temporal loop, attempting to save a galaxy that has already been destroyed. Mercury lets Virgo take his heart in order to see past Gemini's deception, which lets Virgo stand a chance against Gemini. Virgo then plans to destroy the book that Gemini holds, as it is the one thing keeping the universe alive. Once Virgo defeats Gemini, she throws the book into the volcano and watches as the universe comes to an end. For the fixed ending, before reaching the peak of the volcano, Virgo tells Algol and Spica her new plan to reinstate the Golden Age, but they disagree with her and try and fight her. After she kills them, she then proceeds forward. At the peak, Virgo meets Scorpio at the peak of the volcano, and she reveals that she was the one to kill Pisces, as she throws you Pisces' crown. Virgo fights Scorpio, but Scorpio is the one to kill herself in the end, cursing Virgo to forever be alone for the rest of her existence. Once Virgo reforges the 1-cube crown, she is crowned the ruler of the new Golden Age, but she decides to spend the rest of her life looking for Pisces, even though Pisces is never to return. In the end, I think this game is an extremely underrated gem, and wish this game got more of a spotlight. Combat system alongside the stats are complex, but not complex enough to cause a headache. I did experience a couple glitches every so often, but not enough to be that big of an issue, and none of them were game-breaking, I would say. The story is amazing, and though I wish there were some more differences with each path, making them more unique, each path as they currently stand as of now are already really good. I would have loved to see some of the other domains, though, especially the Astrological Court and the Dioscorian Library. The only major complaint that I'd have is about a cutscene that occurs in Chapter 5 of the game, as it's an unskippable 7-minute long cutscene. For most other cutscenes in the game, they're rather short and you can mash the A button in order to get out of the cutscene quickly. However, for the single cutscene, you can't skip it, and you can't mash the A button, so you have to sit there for the full 7 minutes. Overall though, other than that little gripe I have, this game is amazing, and I definitely think you should play it. I've beaten this game 6 times already, and I haven't gotten tired of it. I've gotten all the achievements, and I would do it again given the opportunity. I think you could see how much I love the game, and I really hope this video allows you to either be interested in trying the game or love the game yourself. I'm not ready to make any kind of videos like this again. This was a lot more time than I thought I needed to take in. This took me over a week to do by the time this is uploaded. But I'm really interested in trying making this a series just talking about games I enjoy. So hopefully I get the motivation in the future to make another episode in this series. Thank you for watching, and have a good one. Goodbye.